Hello, aspiring aviation and aerospace professionals, fellow aviators, and everyone else who likes to hear everything that is all things aviation and aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens, and welcome to another edition of All Things Aviation and Aerospace. We're going to have a fun show today. We're going to talk about, for lack of a better, clever way to say it, the mechanics of aviation, so to speak. I'm Vince Mickens, and I have three great guests today to discuss the technical and engineering side of opportunities from a couple of different perspectives. So, you know, we have one from American Airlines, who's had a storied career there. And then we have a gentleman from Vaughn College up in Flushing, New York, right across the street from LaGuardia. That could do a show about that by itself. And then we have a young man from Purdue University who's also at GE Aviation, which plays a big role in technology and engineering and both the commercial and, well, actually commercial, private, and military side of things. So let me introduce our guests and we can get things rolling. There's so much going on. And so many things to talk about. I'd like to start out telling you a little bit about Aurelio White. You're going to hear me call him Yayo because he and I have known each other for a very long time. Our families have. He is a senior aircraft maintenance engineering technician with American Airlines. I had technical down there. I'm not sure what that was about. And is based at Reagan National Airport. Yayo has had a wealth of experience, both first with Eastern Airlines and then forever with American Airlines in every aspect of the aviation maintenance world. So it'll be great to hear, Yayo, what you have to say about things, and welcome to the program today.
Thank you very much, Vince. Really appreciate it being here.
Yep,
Thank you.
it's great to have you. And we have Domenic Proscia, did I say that right?
You did.
I have this thing. That's okay. We won't get into that. That would take 5 minutes out of the show. No, it's just that I've had so many guests on that have challenged me with name pronunciations. Elijah Peters, I'm so happy for you. But anyhow, we'll come to you in a minute. Domenic Proscia is the Vice President of Training at the Aviation Training Institute at Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, as I mentioned earlier, up in Flushing, New York. And he has been involved with all aspects of aviation training and education, academics, et cetera, for a long time. So it'll be great to hear his story and his perspective on our topic today. And our third guest is an aspiring young aviation professional. He's currently a senior at Purdue University, Elijah Peters. Elijah is majoring in mechanical engineering with a minor in electrical and computer engineering. So he's busy academically, along with his fourth year of rotation internship with GE Aviation's co-op program, focusing on controls engineering and advanced military engineering. Well, he just got busier. Elijah's looking forward to completing his private pilot training. We were just talking about that in the pre-show. He's almost there. And then also he's looking forward to being accepted into GE Aviation's Edison Engineering Development Program, which he'll tell us a little bit more about. Gentlemen, welcome again to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you guys here. So let's kick things off a little bit, and I'll start with you, Domenic. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you got started, and then we can talk about some of the things that you do at Vaughn.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Astoria, New York. That's about 5 minutes away from LaGuardia Airport and 5 minutes away from Manhattan by subway. I got bitten by the aviation bug when I was probably about 11 years old. My friends and I would ride our bikes to LaGuardia Airport and watch the airplanes take off. I was fascinated by it like a lot of kids. I knew right then and there, hey, I want to be a pilot. That was my dream. Well, time came to go to high school. I wanted to go to aviation high school. My dad had other aspirations for me, sent me to a regular preparatory college prep type high school program, went through it, did what the other kids did, after school, after high school, I got into college studying computer science. I really went at it for about 3.5 years, and I realized, man, this was not for me. I just was not cut out for that. So I started, taking regular jobs, looking around, and got married, and my wife was involved in travel industry, and I always wanted aviation, so I started looking around. I discovered or rediscovered Vaughn College. Some of my friends went there, and I went and took a look at the school. Got real excited about getting into aviation maintenance at that time, but I tell you, I was scared. It was not an easy thing to do. I didn't have a mechanical background growing up in New York City, so I started taking classes, and it was step by step. They taught me everything I needed to know. By the time I was done and gotten through that program and gotten certified, I was able to function as an entry level technician. I got my first jobs at the Intrepid Museum, working on restoring military aircraft. That was an awesome job because I got a lot of sheet metal work, a lot of landing gear work, a lot of fabric work. I learned and experienced things most mechanics wouldn't experience. From there, I got into the manufacturing world. Started working, building components for aircraft. Did that for quite a while. After that, I was lucky enough to end up as a part-time instructor at Vaughn College in the aviation maintenance program, really teaching students now what my experiences were. And that progressed into full-time aviation maintenance, and I grew into other departments, and ultimately where I am today. So I'm involved in so many parts of the college. I'm involved in the aviation maintenance program, the flight training program, taking care of the simulation equipment we have, overseeing the air traffic control program. It's been absolutely amazing what I've experienced because of the education that I got in this field.
Yeah, so you came up in the trenches, so to speak, in terms of, working your way up and learning what you did and that type of thing. To our young audience that's watching, what do you recommend, or what are your comments to them about as they're trying to figure things out, and realize that, yes, there are opportunities to be a pilot, et cetera, but then, like today, we're talking about engineering, technology, maintenance, hands-on type of stuff.
Well, the quick thing I tell everyone is don't be afraid of anything. There are no mistakes. You'll go through it, you'll learn everything you do, you're going to learn from. That's the biggest takeaway. If you have a dream, follow it, because you'll regret it later on.
Yeah. Let me open it up a little bit and go to Aurelio. Aurelio, tell us a little bit about your background and your perspective on the same thing.
Yes, well, I was born in Panama City, the Republic of Panama. And just like with Domenic, as a young man, I was just fascinated by all things flight. Just watching the planes fly over my home onto going towards a small airfield called Paitilla in downtown Panama City, and going to the open houses that the military would have down in Panama. Started to fly when I was 16 years old down there, and just learned a lot about flying dead reckoning because there were no VOR stations around. And so that was pretty fascinating. Learned how to take off and land in a tail dragger plane, the Cessna 180, old Cessna 180, flew Cessna 150s also.
Sounds like you were having some fun.
Oh, big fun, yeah. At that age, and none of my friends were doing that sort of thing. And once I graduated from high school, I applied to several aviation colleges and universities here in the United States. And of course, I was fascinated by Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach. But that was a little bit above my parents' monetary means. So I ended up going to Parks College in St. Louis, Missouri. And, Parks, not too many people know it, but Parks has the #1 air certificate in the United States. It was established a few months after uh, Lindbergh flew across the ocean in 1927. So they were in the business for a long, long time. So it has a very storied history. Once at Parks, I was like Dominic. My background really wasn't technical because none of my relatives or friends were mechanics or that sort of stuff. But I always found in this career, you find people who are willing to show you and for you to be an apprentice. Uh, I have always found that to be the case. Uh, my first semesters at Parks were nothing but the AMPs, the airframe and power plant training. And just like Dominic, we worked on what's called sticks and rags and old Piper Cubs and how to do patches and repair on fabric. And we always laugh because we were saying, well, we're not going to be doing this in the real world, but that's just part of the gradual training that you have to go through. And I was pretty lucky. I ended up doing a part-time job on the weekends for an FBO in Lambert Field in St. Louis called Things Aviation. So I was able to learn quite a bit there also.
Yep, where I learned to fly.
Oh, okay. There you go. Didn't know that.
Not at Midcoast, but at Lambert. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was on the other side of the field at a little flight training school. So in a
Okay.
150. That was when the aircraft was, I think, $17 an hour wet, and the
Yeah.
instructor was
It's a long
$4.
time ago. Yes.
So
I
I
did it
just
so I
told you
couldn't
guys how
afford it.
long ago that was.
Yes. So yeah. So after obtaining my airframe and power plant certificates, I started my engineering courses at the university, and I also took management courses at the university. So I ended up with a Bachelor of Science in aircraft maintenance management and Associate of Science in Engineering at Parks College.
How did you come about that decision? How did you come about deciding those majors and those emphasis, I
Well,
should say?
because I wanted to have a bachelor's also, and so I figured some of my credits I could use towards the engineering. I just had to add some of the math courses and some of the physics courses like structure and design, strength of materials,
So you were just covering all bases.
aerodynamics, yeah, that sort of thing. And yeah, well, I graduated in '82 and I was in love, so I decided to go back to Panama. Uh, and the thing is, I had been hired by Sikorsky Helicopters in Stratford, Connecticut, but love was pulling harder, so I left it all behind.
I think Dominic can relate to that.
and went back to Panama. And Panama was in a recession at that time, so I ended up working at a U.S. naval base called Rodman in the Canal Zone. Saved my money, and I returned to the States. I was going to stop off in Miami for a few days with some friends on my way back to St. Louis to try to be hired by TLUA or Ozark Airlines. And
Wow.
I applied at Eastern, and they hired me right away. So I ended up staying in South Florida for 5 years, where I worked in the hangar. I learned to do sheet metal repairs and that sort of thing.
What kind of aircraft did you work on for Eastern?
For Eastern, there were old DC-9s, Boeing 727s, and Lockheed L-1011s.
Oh, the L-1011.
Which we called 10,000 rivets flying in formation.
Right.
So,
yeah, the one that you could hear stuff going on in the structure of the aircraft as you were flying.
Yeah.
We used to laugh about that all the time when I flew on it as a passenger.
So after unfortunately Eastern went out of business in '89, I worked for maintenance company called Dynair Engineering. So we were doing a contract maintenance work for American Airlines. And one of the supervisors there suggested to me, why don't you apply for the for American? I figured, well, okay. And I saw myself heading out to Dallas since that's their major hub. But they, once I was hired, they said, well, you have an option to go to Dallas or Chicago. And I had family living in Chicago. I figured, well, let me go there and save some money.
And the
So,
rest is history, right?
and the rest is history. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's great. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to Elijah. Elijah, you're a senior at Purdue University, and your focus right now is systems engineering, but you're majoring in mechanical engineering. Let me see if I have that right. Yeah, and minoring in computer and electrical engineering. Do you want to add anything else in there? No, just kidding. But I'm gonna do this a little differently with you. You've just heard two gentlemen that have been in the industry a very long time, and have carved their paths in terms of their success with what they do. Just from that, what's your immediate take of hearing them talk about their backgrounds?
It just kind of confirms something that's been said over and over again to me, is that, everybody asks when they're going into college or whatever, their step-by-step plan and exactly where they want to end up. But it just seems like everybody has, kind of happy accidents to end up where they end up. And I think that's good to know that, stuff happens along the way, and it might be just what you need to happen to end up where you want to be in the future.
Sure. Do the majority, and I'm shifting back to you for a second, Domenic. Do the majority of the students there at Vaughn College come in that way and kind of have this game plan that changes dramatically as they go through school?
Very, very similar stories. You hear it over and over. Kids, students come to us and just they heard about it, they want to experience it, they come in here from all different angles. And so often do we hear, I always wanted to get into this work. And, ever since I was a kid, and that's the main thing that we always hear.
Got you. So Elijah, tell us a little bit about you in terms of how you came about, where did you grow up and how did you pick engineering as a focus?
So I'm from Columbus, Indiana, which is just about an hour south of Indianapolis. And Columbus is world headquarters for Cummins, making diesel engines. So there's an engineer, every 5 feet. So I've always been kind of surrounded by it. And then just all my hobbies, I was interested in programming and woodworking and building drones and just, everything in that kind of STEM vein. So I thought it was pretty natural progression to do either computer science or engineering. And I decided to do like mechanical engineering because I figured, I could kind of pivot into computer science, one of my other main hobbies from mechanical engineering, but can't really do the other way around. So I was just trying to open my options and keep them open as long as I could before I had to make any concrete decisions. And then, I was always interested in aviation. Actually, in high school, I forgot to mention earlier, my junior year and senior year, I was part of a club that was putting together a Vans RV-12, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh wow!
Putting all the rivets in and kind of putting the wing kit together and the.
Was that a class project within that school?
It wasn't a class. It was just a after-school extracurricular club that a local guy had put together. So I want to do that someday. Build my own kit plane, either a Vans or a Kit Fox, something along those lines.
See you at Air Venture.
Yeah. And then I ended up at Purdue. I knew I wanted to do engineering, and Purdue is a good engineering school, and I got in-state tuition. So I mean, that was a pretty easy choice on that front. And then originally I was only going to do mechanical, but I took my first electrical class and I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I was good at it. So I'm doing that more and more. And actually, I'm thinking if I go back for a master's, I'm going to be considering doing electrical masters instead of mechanical. And then I just interviewed with a lot of different companies my freshman year at our co-op career fair, and got an offer from GE, and I jumped on it, and now here 4 rotations later, I'm really enjoying it.
So to the point we were making earlier, did you know anything about GE Aviation before you applied
Uh,
and got
not
accepted?
not really. It was more of an impulse decision to even apply. Like I didn't even know they were going to be at the career fair, and they had a cool booth, so I thought, why not?
A happy accident.
Yep.
Tell us about your rotation there, starting with the first year, because you're in your fourth rotation now. So tell us about the progression of that. What did you start doing, and what happened after that?
Yeah, so my first rotation, that was right after my freshman year. So, I didn't know too much yet. So, I mean, it wasn't like I was gonna be
No?
engineering some some fancy parts. So I was a quality uh kind of intern. I put together stuff in Excel. I was in supply chains, so monitoring the factory floor and putting together statistics on stuff that we had to rework, and all the financials that associate with that type of thing. So that's pretty valuable to learn Excel and do all the pivot charts and stuff. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but looking back on it, I'm really, really glad that's where I ended up for my first rotation. Because that those skills in Excel and stuff have been useful ever since.
Let me interrupt you real quick. That's a big deal that a lot of students take certain courses and things that they do are there. In your case, it was in this co-op internship, and they were like, "Why am I doing this? What good is this going to do?" With a little patience and time passing, you find out, oh, I'm glad I took that, because now it applies to something even more advanced that I'm now learning.
Yep.
Is that the way you felt about it?
Oh yeah, it's all building blocks. You can't start at the top. You gotta put them together as you go along. Then my second rotation, I was in Evendale, so Cincinnati, and I was working in fleet support, which kind of supports all of our flying engines. And I was actually doing some programming there, some computer science work with data, and that was pretty open-ended. I really enjoyed that. I got to kind of pave my own way and do what I thought was going to be valuable to the company. So that was a really cool opportunity. And then my third rotation, it was also more of a software development role, which doesn't seem quite, you know, natural given my mechanical major, but I put on my resume and stuff. I have quite a bit of computer science experience and stuff, and they've been doing a really good job of putting me inside different roles and stuff that they know I would excel at and be interested in. So I really appreciate the co-op program in that front. So yeah, I did a software development inside test systems engineering, which was really, really interesting. I got to learn a lot of cool stuff, a lot of self-improvement, and even teaching, some of my coworkers, because they gave me my own project, and I was able to host meetings, and do all of our design work on that specific part. And then now I'm in controls and systems engineering for the advanced military engine programs. So a couple things I can mention on that. The B-52 re-engineering effort, on the GE Aviation website, there's some information on our proposals, and that's been really interesting to be a part of something like that. And also just helping to see, kind of what advancements and extra features we can add to legacy engines. And a lot of what I do revolves around the computer in the engine, the Fedex, and how that communicates with the different pieces and with the airframer and such.
Yeah, that makes for a great transition for me to go back to Aurelio for a minute. But I can also see Domenic biting at the bits of some things he heard. But I'm going to go to you first, Aurelio. And speaking of FADEC and a lot of different things, so tell us a little bit about what you do and deal with on a daily basis. And I mentioned earlier, we were talking about that in pre-show, about the fact that you're sent to schools fairly regularly to to be updated on technology, both in terms of Airbus and Boeing aircraft. But tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, well, a regular night for me is doing inspections, uh, repairs. Sometimes we get engineering orders where we have to do certain modifications. Uh, a few weeks ago, we had an aircraft that had engine issues. We do what's called a magnetic chip detector check, and if a lot of metal shavings are found, then a borescope, which is basically an inspection of the innards of the engine, has to be performed. So that's the sort of stuff we do on an average night. Since we work on line maintenance, most of the repairs are regular type of repairs. We don't do any major repairs like if it was on an overhaul station, but we stay quite busy.
Yeah, one of the things
I
you
was
were
interested.
Go ahead.
Well, I was interested in listening to Elijah, because I know American Airlines purchased quite a few Airbus A320neo, which is new engine option. The neo stands for that. And with the CFM LEAP 1A engines, I guess they're built in Cincinnati. And then the same thing with the MAX jets with the LEAP 1B engines. And I wondered if he had worked on that project, or he had anything to do with it.
I personally haven't, though I've seen there's been lots of communications on that front. It's been a heroic effort to ramp up the production on those, at least before COVID. Obviously, that's affected the entire industry, but still, I mean, that was a big effort by the company to put forth those new options and get them in production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vince, but not to get overtly technical so that the young kids can follow us. Well, and part of the work also is it's very interesting because you run into different situations on a nightly basis, but there are also challenges because you are working on always under the gun, because
Right.
the aircraft has to be ready in the morning to make revenue.
Well, and that was
So
one of the
it's
things
not,
I was going to bring up that you were talking to me the other day about, and that's about your coordination with operations, airport and aircraft operations scheduling
yeah.
and all that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah, we were talking about there are always other options for young people also in the airline industry, and one of them is flight dispatcher. So not too many young kids know about that, but they assist in planning flights. They take into account the aircraft performance before it flies into certain situations like thunderstorms or weather that might affect the flight. They do
They do the
weight and balance. Yes, yes, and
fuel.
correct. And they're certificated by the Federal Aviation Administration, and they make very good money.
Yeah, Aurelio, one thing on that industry, you said that young people don't know what aircraft dispatches are. I find that old people don't know what aircraft dispatches are. But you're so right about that. It's
Yes.
it's a viable opportunity.
The viable
It's a
opportunity.
great
Yes.
career. And what most people don't know is they're responsible for the safety of that flight, just like the
Correct.
pilot. They have to
Yes.
sign the flight off before it goes.
Yeah, they have a shared responsibility with the flight crew. Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Dominic, while you're also, I wanted to give you a chance to tell a little bit more about what you guys teach and what you offer at Vaughn, and how that applies to the young audience that's watching.
So I'll start off with dispatch because we were just talking about that. Dispatch is a really cool program. It's one of the quickest programs that the FAA, by regulation, it's done in about 217 hours of training. That equates usually to about 8 to 12 weeks, maybe 4 days a week of school. And just like any other FAA certificate, at the end of that, you have to take written, oral, and practical exams. We do training in that roughly about 3 times a year. We run dispatch training. Vaughn also has a long history in airframe and power plant mechanic training. We've been doing that since about 1932 when we were founded. We get into the management aspect, airline management and airport management, and even general management. Those are areas that are really, really wonderful opportunities for students, because you understand the big picture, how airports operate. It's just they're little cities. It's just absolutely amazing. Then we get into our electronics or our engineering programs, I should say, where we have majors in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, mechatronics, do a lot of robotics works. Those students are so active, man. They're here 24 hours a day, it seems, just working on side projects. It's absolutely wonderful to see how those students interact with each other, with their instructors. The whole community here is absolutely wonderful.
When Elijah earlier was mentioning the co-op career fair, I noticed you perked up, Domenic, about that. Do you guys have, or do you have? There's so many different aviation events out there that some of them will expose you to it in general, and then some are a little bit more specific in terms of career, like Women in Aviation is very specific career-wise and things like that. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we do a lot of career fairs here. We used to do them on campus, and now we've gone all virtual because of the pandemic.
Sure.
But they're a wonderful way for students to start engaging and start networking with companies, with opportunities out there. Our students are actively attending conferences, taking part in a whole host of events, not only in the United States but internationally. So we have a great engagement, with industry all throughout, and that's really important. When you go to school, you want to start engaging immediately. Start, getting out there, taking advantage of every opportunity that's handed to you. And as a student, there's so many opportunities, because ultimately a school wants to see you succeed. They want you to be our ambassador. So the better job we do for you, the more success you have, the better it is for us. I think any student would feel that way, feel proud after they start working for a company. And we want that, and it makes us feel good too. It is nothing better than seeing a student succeed, watching a person come up.
Absolutely.
And again, it's nothing better than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As an aside, Vince,
Sure.
I had to smile when Domenic was talking about the enthusiasm of all the students in robotics and those sort of things. And I harken back to my days, and we thought we were a hot thing, just learning Fortran and COBOL.
And Elijah's over there going, wow, these guys
What's that?
I'll take my Python any day over Fortran.
I learned assembly.
Yeah, we can go back, and I have enough gray hairs on my head. I can talk about computers that were the height to the ceiling, and that used 2 and 4 inch tape to move about bytes and all that kind of good stuff. I won't even try to act like I know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, I think you guys bring up a couple of great points, but one of the things that I hear commonly and see commonly, and I like to try to point out in terms of aviation and aerospace always seem like it's distant, it's hard, it's impossible to get in. I think a lot of kids have misconceptions, a lot of young people, I shouldn't just say kids, that have a misconception for that matter, their parents sometimes also not knowing about the industry. They don't realize what you can do in aviation and actually how easy it is to get started in it. So my example of this is more specific to what we're kind of talking about, is if a kid has good mechanical aptitude or good electronic aptitude, there are obviously major things that they can do in terms of becoming an A&P or an avionics tech or things like that, but they don't know about that, and then they don't know where to start if they do finally hear about it.
You're 100% right. One of the things I've noticed is when you talk to a person about aviation, they automatically think pilots. That's what they're exposed to. When they're at an airport walking through it, all they see is pilots and flight attendants. Nobody
Absolutely.
sees the aircraft dispatchers. Nobody sees the aircraft mechanic. Everyone behind the scenes. No one sees the airport managers, what they do.
Yes.
So once they get exposed to that, man, the world is it's so huge. It's so huge. And with the number of technicians and pilots forecasted, the need and the aging workforce right now, it's time
Yeah.
time real good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Actually, this is a great time to get in the industry more than ever. Both sides, aviation in general and aerospace specifically. Elijah, did you see that with some of your peers with regard to, um, you know, not realizing the opportunities that avail themselves in aviation? Would you consider that something common that you would see too?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, because obviously at Purdue we have like aerospace engineering as well, and a lot of people I think if you want to work in the engineering side in aviation, you do aerospace engineering. Which that's not to say that that's not a path. That's a perfectly valid path. But designing the airplanes and the engines, you need mechanical, you need electrical, you need software and programmers. I mean, there's no matter what you're interested in, I mean, there's a spot for it. I mean, in avionics, there's just in that little segment, you have the people that program it, you have the mechanical engineer that does the thermals, designs the enclosure, and then you have, say on the outside of the airplane, you have the aerospace people that do all the fluids work and the CFD. So I just think it's valuable to realize that on the engineering and technical side, it's not just the airflow and fluids sides of things. I mean, I'd almost argue that there's more mechanical and calculations involved inside the stresses than even the aeronautical aspect of it.
I think that a lot of young people are probably intimidated, and they think that when you talk about aerospace engineering, that sort of thing, that everybody is sitting at a control desk at the Jet Propulsion laboratory. And but like you say, Elijah, you need the whole gamut of technical people to put that rocket together. Not everybody's going to be just an aerospace engineer. And I don't know if schools, high schools, do a disservice in that they don't expose the kids to these things. And we're moving to a situation where we are fiercely competing with other parts of the world, and their kids are really on top of math and technical issues. So we just can't expect everyone to, you know, want to be an athlete or want to be a movie star. So it would be
Hmm.
great if schools could expose kids to these things also.
And I don't want to do kind of the other aspects of disservice either, because I focus on the technical, because that's obviously the engineering side. That's where I like to live. But like
Yes.
GE has they call it an OMLP program, so that's more the people that go to the factories and the plant floors and optimize and keep the operation running smoothly. So it's more of like a management business side. That
Yes.
really attracts the people that love to be social and talk and get people to work together. And just I think that's pretty valuable to point out too, that it's not all just sitting down and cranking out some math.
Right. You have to have the right connection with people, and so they can fit in the mold, and you can move your projects forward.
Hmm.
There's really some place for everyone. That someone with mechanical aptitude, someone with electronic aptitude, someone with mathematical skills, someone that's not so personal. There's a place for everyone in this industry.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Vince, I think you're on mute.
Hello? Testing
Yeah,
one.
now we can hear you, Vince.
Uh, what can I say? I was going to get technical for a little. No wonder I couldn't interrupt you guys. It was probably a good thing I was on mute. I was going to get technical a little bit, starting with Elijah and in reference to GE Aviation. Elijah, I was looking at some of the area that you're focused in right now with your co-op internship in terms of control systems and that type of thing. And I just wanted to ask you, so I was looking at one area that's basically described as managing complex aircraft systems that deal with communication, navigation, and monitoring of the vital functions of an aircraft and that type of thing, and avionics computing systems. Are you involved with that? Is that something that's part of what you're dealing with right now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that pretty much nails it on the head. I mean,
Got
old
it straight from your
school.
website.
Yeah, old school airplane engines, like think like old military engines like on the A-10, purely mechanical. No, there's no, computer brains that are dictating everything. But now on more modern engines, I mean the Fedex, I mean you can look up all the crazy amount of functions it does. I mean it actuates all kinds of different things inside the engine to keep it running well, and it's on constant feedback loops. Um, there's all sorts of diagnostics. It's the Fedex going to be looking at the temperatures, the pressures inside the engine, and it'll be able to figure out if anything's going awry, and all that data is saved. And you can even kind of make predictions on if anything is going to go wrong, or how long out it has to be until it's serviced.
Can you explain to our non-aviators what FADEC is?
Yeah, FADEC stands for Full Authority Digital Engine Control. So you can basically think of it as just a computer that's mounted on the side of the engine, and it basically tells it, it gets a throttle input from the pilot. So the pilot just has to worry about that. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of other switches and stuff, but at the base of things, it gets a throttle input, and then it tells the engine all the different parts and pieces that move around, exactly what it has to do to give the pilot what it wants.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great innovation. It allows better efficiency, better thrust. I mean, and redundancy. These FADEX, like people that are afraid of flying, there's two channels on most modern things, and full redundancy there. If one completely fails, the other one immediately steps in. So it makes everything very safe.
Aurelio?
Yeah, Elijah, I wanted to ask you, because I'm trying to recall from all my schooling. FADEC was that developed by the French?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah. Did you have any other comments about that, Aurelio, in terms of those kind of systems? I mean, you work on that stuff every day.
Yeah, well, not every day. Every now and then we have to do a loading on them, and there's a FADEC 2 and
You talking about
FADEC
a
3.
data load?
Yeah, one of them has ribs, and the other one is smooth on the face of it. So yeah.
Okay. Dominic, did you have any comment about that? No.
No, we experience it through our school here. Our power plant instructors get into it.
Into the
our
technical
flight
stuff, yeah.
instructors touching it.
The other thing that was fascinating to me in you guys' industry is the technology allowing now the computers and everything to kind of tell in advance if something's going to be going awry. At GE, they call that the aircraft health management system, in terms of collecting, connecting, detecting, and then directing what needs to be done. Have you been involved with that too, Elijah?
I haven't been involved in any of the design, but part of the documentation, figuring out how everything communicates with each other. I mean, yeah, I mean, everything has to be, a lot of information has to be exchanged for a system like that to work smoothly. And there's a lot of brain power and work behind that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but and it's changing, it's evolving all the time. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, Vince and Elijah and Dominic, that in the airline business, all these aircraft with Boeing and Airbus, all the black boxes have what's called a built-in test equipment, which is we call it bike for short. And whenever there's a diagnostic that says that something is wrong, you go through every step, and they will tell you basically what is wrong or what you need to accomplish to get rid of a fault. Or if you have a line replaceable unit, which is you can replace a part of the electronic system that is faulting, then you go ahead and you do that.
Yeah.
So basically, not like the old days that you just started doing troubleshooting and you were hoping that you could get to the main part of the issue. Now
Right.
you just have to get the black boxes.
Now
and
you
try
can
to figure out.
compartmentalize it
Correct.
with the thing.
Isolation
So,
becomes so much easier.
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know about anything old, so I can't help you guys, but Elijah, let me put you on the spot for something. So you're a senior, you're going to be wrapping up at some point, and you're with the three areas of emphasis. First, mechanical, although you're saying in terms of graduate school, you would probably lean electrical. You're also doing computer, and you're kind of let's talk about the fact that you're now kind of zeroing in on what you really like, and feel comfortable with, feel passionate about, and that type of thing. How does that play out in terms of what you see yourself doing with a company like GE Aviation or otherwise?
Yeah, so like you can kind of see from my coursework, I started mechanical and branched out into electrical side of things. And like I mentioned earlier too, I really enjoy programming. So I think kind of like a systems type of work where, you're incorporating and integrating mechanical, electrical systems to help them all work nicely together. I think that's at least currently where where I have my sights set, because that kind of allows me to mix everything that I'm interested in. And I want to do that at GE Aviation, and to kind of promote the Edison program a bit. GE Aviation has this thing called the Edison Program, which is for new graduates right out of school. It's a rotational leadership program where you do 3 rotations, and you can take courses at GE, and they have partnerships with different universities that those courses count for credit, and you can get your master's degree, and even do a short stint actually full time at the university to finish off everything. And I think that's definitely what I'm planning on applying for, and we'll see. But I think it's a really good opportunity to get a jump start.
Yeah. Domenic, I was just going to ask you, if you were going to speak at a high school today and you were talking to these kids that are basically freshmen through seniors at a high school. So let's say you could talk to the whole gambit of them. What kind of things would you tell them about pursuing this type of career and the education that you guys offer at Vaughn?
Well, first off, I tell them again, don't be afraid. It looks like it's a big animal, but it's really not. When you get into this type of environment, it's all taken very slowly. Pursue your dreams. If you want to do it, nothing can stop you. I tell people that all the time. Go after it. It takes some people a little longer, but persevere. You'll get through it. Go for it.
I think, Vince, that that phrase that Dominic said, pursue your dreams, that should be the main mantra, especially for young kids. I've noticed in the last years more and more young women in the aircraft maintenance business. At least I've seen them at American Airlines and some of the other airlines here at Reagan National. So the message must be percolating down somehow, because now it's not just young men in the business. There are quite a few young women doing aircraft maintenance also.
You are so right. It has opened up. The hiring is amazing. Opportunities are great right now for women getting into aviation. So it's not just men.
Yeah, yeah. And on speaking of diversity, it's actually opening up all the way around in terms of including people of color, et cetera. It's just there, and you guys touched on it earlier, but it prior to the pandemic, there was a surge happening of needing everybody under the sun in aviation. So whether it was a pilot, A&P, avionics tech, et cetera, scheduler and dispatchers, and Yayo, I was glad that you brought that up, and Dominic, that you elaborated on it earlier, because it's an area that a lot of people don't realize how significant it is, whether it's for the airlines or whether it's corporate flight departments. Scheduling aircraft and crews and positioning crews and positioning aircraft and all of those things can get pretty complex.
Oh, yes.
And then you throw in weather,
Yes.
and you throw in a demanding C-suite of executives,
Yeah.
and a few other things, or a small crisis here and there, and it's one heck of a job to do. And the airlines is the obvious. You have right now, you have the pandemic, you have weather, you have other things. Yayo, you may be able to elaborate on that even more, of what you guys have to deal with. And it puts, as you said, puts the onus on maintenance to keep things running, and do it in a timely fashion, which puts you under the gun, as you said earlier. Aurelio.
Yes. Yeah, we're basically always, with a lot of work, and it's a lot of work, but you have to do the work in a thorough manner, and that's the calling card of aviation maintenance. It's nobody wants the reputation of being a shade tree mechanic, So you have to be a professional. You have to look at yourself as a professional, and that's the reason why also, like President Reagan used to say, trust but verify. Even though we do our job, the FAA is always there also to back check everything
Right.
we do. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, everything we do is we're living under the world of compliance. So everything you do has to be right, and that it starts right here in a facility that trains aviation technicians. We're exposing the students to FAA regulations all
Right.
through the gambit. We have to comply with a whole host of aviation regulations to make sure that student is ready, to make sure that student is prepared to a lifestyle that's very professional. So you hit it right on that. You hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah. Elijah, do you find that also in your training and education there at Purdue and GE Aviation, that you guys also pay attention to that?
Oh yeah, at Purdue, part of our first kind of mechanical engineering year, sophomore year, had a ethics as part of our course, and our responsibility in keeping people safe. And then just a recent thing with GE Aviation, now all of our big kind of all hands meetings start with a safety moment, kind of highlighting a specific example of where a team made the right call. Like just yesterday had a safety moment thing talking about a program where really tight deadlines, and this thing would have put them behind even more, but they say you don't want to put anybody at risk, and made the right choice. And they just keep highlighting how our responsibility first and foremost is to bring people home safely, not to just keep our bottom line. I really appreciate that culture, and expanding on the culture. I mean, there's been so much, like you guys said, diversity and inclusion. Like GE has these things called affinity groups, and they really promote them to the co-ops and stuff. And we get communications about them all the time. There's like a Native American, veteran, Hispanic affinity group, LGBT. I mean, really, they try to make you feel as at home, and how you can bring, you don't have to feel like you're putting on a mask when you come to work, because they think, the whole point of diversity and inclusion is to get a variety of viewpoints, and you only get that by allowing people to be, their true selves at work. And I think that's a great thing to promote.
Well, and the other positive thing about diversity and inclusion is that, including beyond those viewpoints, you get people with skill sets that can complement what's needed in the industry. In other words, all of us have something we specialize in or that we're really good at, and just want a fair shot at being able to demonstrate that through getting on board somewhere. And as we've been saying the whole program, the opportunities, and I was going to mention continue with what I was saying earlier, that opportunities are wide open right now. What I was going to add on there is that also applies to aerospace. As we all know, everybody lately has been glued to NASA TV and their YouTubes and whatever to watch all of the great things that are happening with NASA, SpaceX, JPL. You know, on February 18th, they're landing another rover on Mars, a much more advanced rover that's hopefully going to send back a lot of information and get us prepared for those who want to go to Mars. I'm going to pass this time, but you know.
I think that those things, Vince, they really enthuse young people when they see this is what the future is bringing. And with Richard Branson and his space, Virgin Space or whatever he calls it, and Mr. Bezos gets his started, Mr. Elon Musk with their space tourism, that's going to really generate a new generation of young people who are going to be looking to the stars.
Absolutely. Hey, as we wrap things up, let me start with Elijah. Elijah, I don't know why I keep wanting to flip your name. Elijah, my apologies. Elijah, as we wrap up, give us your final thoughts that you would share with young people, you know, middle and high schoolers that are thinking about a career in aviation and aerospace and thinking about, are curious about what they may want to do. With what you've experienced and currently as an active student in an active internship with a major aviation company, what would you share with them?
I mean, I'm glad you asked that question because I wanted to highlight, you know, when I got hired, my interviewer said one of the main things that kind of swayed his decision in choosing me was the fact that I had a passion, an obvious passion for aviation. You know, I was working on my pilot's license. I like to make, you know, first person view drones and just really showing that, you know, you're not in it just for the money or something, that you're truly interested in what you're going to be doing. I think that's super valuable. And I think, you know, companies really do look for that because having people that enjoy what they do, you know, just is better for everybody, you know, creates better work and people that enjoy, you know, spending their time in the 9 to 5. So I guess pick up some hobbies, you know, find clubs and extracurriculars, whatever you can do to kind of to build up your interest and show that, you know, this is where you want to be heading in life.
I couldn't agree with you more about finding your passion. We say it and it almost sounds cliche sometimes, but you can't emphasize it enough. Domenic, how about you?
So I want to start by saying finding your passion. If you're here watching this, you probably already found your passion.
Good point.
You're going to be in it. I'm going to say something that's very specific to Vaughn College, but it really demonstrates what's happening, you know, all over the country. Number one, we're an extremely diverse student body here. We're, you know, smack dab in the middle of New York City. We have practically every language spoken in our hallways. A couple of years ago, the New York Times did a report looking at upward mobility, looking at the bottom lower 40% of income earners, and then looked at this group 15 years later. And Vaughn College turned out to be the #1 school in the country, moving people from the low income to the upper high income brackets.
Wow.
Which is really a testament to the entire aviation and engineering fields that we teach. We're so used to and committed to getting that student that comes from next to nothing and builds them up to make them, transforms not only them, but their entire families. It's absolutely a wonderful opportunity. To close out, I just want to say, never stop learning. Never stop learning. Thank you.
Yeah, that's actually, that applies in general. And then I always add that in as a pilot. You never stop learning.
That's
so,
it.
Yeah, we're going to let you help us wrap up here.
Okay, yes, like my two other panelists said, you know, pursue your dreams, don't let anyone derail your dreams. And I'll use that Latin phrase that the British Royal Air Force has, per ardua astra, through hardship to the stars. Always look forward, always shoot to the stars.
Well said, gentlemen. Well, we have run out of time, but it's been great to have all of you on. And I appreciate each of your different perspectives on this industry, what you do in it, and what you would like to see others do in it. And, you know, we're all looking forward to the future and what it offers and that type of thing. Elijah, now that I say your name correctly, we wish you the best of luck at GE Aviation and at Purdue.
Thank you.
Purdue is another great university. There are a number of great aviation-centric universities, aviation and aerospace, with a lot of different, a variety of emphasis on all things aviation. No pun intended, but pun intended. No, it really is great. So Yayo's laughing at me because he's like, you know, this man just will not stop with the corny jokes. But that's what I do. So. No, really great to have you guys on board, seriously, and appreciate your information and wish you all the best with what you're doing. And we want to continue to inspire the next generation of young aviation professionals with some of the things that we have here on All Things Aviation and Aerospace. So without further ado, we will see you guys next week. I will be talking next week about the Perseverance rover that's going to be landing on Mars. It's coming up on the 18th, as I mentioned earlier. Yes, I'm a little bit of a nerd on the side. You know, I kind of like these things. I get excited about them. But I think to Yayo's point, Aurelio's point earlier, and that is that it is things like that, and like SpaceX taking, you know, the other day, Victor Glover and team were walking, doing a spacewalk outside the International Space Station. They were actually mounting a camera or something or fixing something pretty minor, but it was a 5-hour spacewalk to do it. And that you know, we haven't seen that kind of stuff in a while, so it was just kind of neat to see that. It's going to be neat to see the rover land, hopefully successfully and everything, and all these great things going on. And when the pandemic is behind us, there will be a severe need for pilots, mechanics, avionics techs, schedulers and dispatchers, and anything else that you can think of in aviation. And in aerospace, I had somebody on not too long ago from Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and it really doesn't really matter what your major is because they probably need it for some aspects. So in other words, you can major in microbiology and there's a need for that. I had a gentleman on from UND, was talking about human space travel. And he was like, well, you know, if you go to Mars, somebody's going to have to know how to do dentistry. You know, so you get a toothache on Mars, it'd take you a long time to get back to get that fixed. So I think points are well taken with it. And again, I want to thank you all for being with us. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Wonderful to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for
Appreciate
watching.
it.
And everyone take care and stay safe.
Thank you.